Good evening and welcome to the October 1st meeting of the Glenville Town Board. Please rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Please join me in prayer. Loving and gracious God, you are indeed the giver of all good gifts, and we thank you today for all your blessings. In our work here tonight, we ask that you guide us and continue as we continue to seek your wisdom, your courage, and your strength. Be with us in our deliberations and help us to be wise in the decisions we make for the good of all those who have placed their trust and confidence in our leadership. We ask this in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Let the record show Councilman Martin will be coming in later this evening. Councilman Pitlevani?
Here.
Councilman Ramachar?
Here.
Councilwoman Rosbowski? Here. Supervisor Ketzley?
Here. We have quite a bit on our agenda, actually. If you have an agenda, they're up front. If you don't have one, we have 6 add-ons. Actually, one add-on is coming off, so we have 6 add-ons, 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6. Number 3 will be removed from the add-on list. We'll take those up after resolution 19. There are actually a variety of different resolutions. One is dealing with setting a public hearing. Another is dealing with taking the lowest bid for natural gas contract. And then we have a couple others relating to accepting the lowest bid for work to be done on Greens Corner School. Another one is allowing the superintendent to pave Maritime Road project. And the last one is authorizing the supervisor to execute documents for the New York State Justice Department Court Assistance Program. So those are the add-ons. So before we begin, I'll start with item number 4, Town Council reports on my left with Councilman Ramachar.
No reports, Mr. Supervisor, tonight, but I just want to say I had a chance to attend the Oktoberfest. I'm sure most of you had. And it's just an amazing event. I just want to say the volunteers, the committee, the town staff, everyone that played a part did just a phenomenal job. It was smooth running. It was a new location. I was extremely impressed. I mean, everyone coming in from out of town, it was just amazing. So I want to acknowledge those people.
It was excellent. I want to know why I'm the only board member that gets dunked every year. Any of you guys there to dunk me? Any of you? We raised a lot of money.
They'll be there next year.
Yeah. Councilwoman Rosbowski.
I have no report, but I would also like to echo the sentiments of Councilman Ramachar. It's an event that when we envisioned it 5 years ago, that we wanted it to be exactly what it was. So could not happen with all of the work of all volunteers and the businesses in the community that pitch in at no cost to the town residents. For some of us to bring our families and enjoy that is great. Also, happy birthday, Mr. Supervisor.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We're going to sing later. So. Councilman Pitlevani.
I have no report, but I also would like to echo the same feelings about the Oktoberfest. I was there from noon to 5, I think, and we were a little concerned about the new location, but it certainly proved to be bigger and better than ever before. It was a great event, and of course the weather didn't hurt at all.
You don't want to echo the birthday wishes?
Later.
Okay, all right. Thank you. And I have nothing to add, but I do want to thank Councilman Ramachar and the board members. But I know Councilman Ramachar was liaison to the Oktoberfest from the board, and to welcome 15,000 people into this town, even though we're not all town residents, was an astonishing feat, and I'm very proud of our community and the positive energy that people experienced there. So congratulations to all. So with that, we'll move on to item number 5, which is a public hearing to hear all those interested, to be heard, considering a zoning map amendment to Freeman's Bridge Road that would end parts of Maple Avenue, that would change it from research, development, technology to general business. I'll open the public hearing. I'll ask Kevin just to come up and give an overview of what the change means, and then anyone who wishes to be heard on that can come to the podium. And so we'll open the public hearing with Kevin giving us the overview.
Okay, this is
to rezone actually 25 properties, 18 in their entirety, and 7 properties that currently have split zoning right now. So portions of those 7 will also be rezoned as well in the lower Freemansbridge Road and lower Maple Avenue areas. And really, I think the board's thinking behind this is let's get the zoning in compliance with our Freemansbridge Road master plan, which calls for commercial development in this area, not industrial. And I think the other reason behind this is an area, it's one of our gateways. It's an area that's been moving towards more commercial and high-rent commercial. I think we don't want to encourage industrial development in that area when we have the business and technology part that's really kind of underutilized at this point. So it seems like this is an area that's higher and better use would be retail, restaurant, office, automotive, that sort of thing. And most of it is on, there's like 2 or 3 parcels on the west side of Freemansbridge Road. Most is on the east side and on the north side of Maple. I've got maps here. I know we mailed these out to the people whose properties are to be rezoned, but I have copies here if anyone needs them.
And just to clarify, because I got a call on this, the properties that are in the river front, that's going to remain. It's not called riverfront.
Yeah, riverfront recreational
Yeah.
commercial. Right.
That's going to remain. It's only the ones that are in currently the research and technology development that will change.
And it's a move from an industrial classification to commercial. The industrial classification is just that, it is industrial, doesn't allow much in the way of traditional commercial uses. It also allows adult-oriented uses, that's another reason we probably don't want to encourage it at that location. Going to general business, it's a much broader base of uses that you can do on that property. So for the most part, it's probably viewed as positive unless you've got design on doing something industrial on your property.
Thank you. So you'll be available for questions.
Sure.
Anyone wish to be heard on this item? Ma'am, you just come up to the podium. We ask you just to state your name and address for the record.
Can you talk to them privately?
Well, you could if you like.
I'm Kathy Haddish, I live on 9 Maple Ave. I'm just wondering what this will do to our tax base, if it will have an impact on that, whether it will be taxed differently.
No, doesn't affect
No.
taxes.
And if we were, obviously it's prime location for business, but if we were to stay there, would we still be able to put an addition on the house? Or because of the zoning, would that stop that?
No, that wouldn't stop that.
It wouldn't.
I mean,
It would be normal procedures to get
yes,
building
a
permit.
residential, like a residential property in this zone would still have the same grandfather in.
Well, probably, we don't have residential as a permitted use there anymore.
Right, neither district allows residential, single family. So anything that's there now is non-conforming.
Right.
You would
Grandfather.
need, well, you're allowed to continue as is.
Oh, well.
So we could not make any additions.
But even now, you could.
Because right now, we're actually renovating, it's got a building permit to put new siding and stuff like that on now. Or should we just,
Yeah, that's not affected. It's about increasing or expanding the use. So there's a provision to the code that we can't expand a non-conforming.
Okay, so our footprint is that house and garage, that's it. Okay.
Yeah, that's what it was prior.
Even under the current zoning.
I had a feeling it was, I didn't realize there was something on it. All right, so I know the taxes will not change.
No.
And hopefully some nice person will come and offer.
We hope it goes down eventually. We're hoping the taxes go down.
Except that that requires a business going into our house, which is, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're having a hard time hearing you back there. Is there a way you can speak up, everybody back there?
Okay, let me turn these up.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wish to be heard on that matter? Only once? Sir?
Wait, I have to go up there.
Yes. And again, we ask you to state your name and address for the record and address the board.
Sure. My name is Bob Rusinko, and I work at Silar Laboratories on Maple Avenue. With the current zoning, could a restaurant or a retail business still relocate to the area, or do you have to have the change for a restaurant to move in?
You have to have a change.
Sam.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Going once, going twice. Public hearing is now closed. The board will consider the change, obviously, tonight. That would be earliest possible next board meeting, October 15th, to be the earliest possible before we can make the change. Next public hearing we'll open is the public hearing to hear all those wish to be heard on the zoning map amendment requested by Victor Sosnowski to change the zoning on the vacant property on the southwest corner of Route 50 and Oak Hill Drive from professional residential to community business. Same thing, Kevin, we'll ask you just to give a summary of the difference between professional residential and community business, and then we'll open the public hearing from there, just so everyone has the same understanding.
All right, now this is an application by the landowner, not the town.
Correct.
The change in zoning here is, it's an upgrade of one step in the commercial designation. The professional business is, or professional residential is a combination of professional offices and residential use, generally aimed at residential scale strips along Route 50 where they're being converted to commercial. So it's a transition zone really between residential and higher intensity commercial. The next step up, the community business, is our prior mid-grade commercial district. And what it would allow here, or the main difference is that it would now allow retail, whereas under the current zoning, it would not allow retail.
Thank you. So we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wish to be heard on that public hearing? Sir.
My name is Bud Martino. I live at 14 Oak Hill Drive, and I'm here representing a few of my neighbors. We very much appreciate the opportunity to express an opinion, and basically we are sort of a neighborhood unit, and probably 95% of the people in that neighborhood have been approached, and this pretty much is a consensus of opinion from those people. We realize that you have the right to vote on this, and you're looking at the best interests of the town, because that's your job, to have the interests of the town at heart. But we're really concerned about the effect of first of all, rezoning this property that will lead to the building of additional business in that area. You must consider the personal right of the property owner to use the property as he wishes. This development may generate some revenue for the town. Both seem to be reasonable, positive outcomes. The problem in changing the zoning on the parcel of land in question is that you begin a cascading effect which leads to development, which we believe will increase traffic and incur an even greater danger to the safety at the intersection of Route 50 and Oak Hill Drive. We do not believe that the development in this specific location, adjacent to a protected wetland, can be remedied with berms, indirect lighting, diversion of groundwater, or the addition of some form of a sound barrier. The basic fact that trees will be cut and non-porous pavement installed will dramatically affect the water flow into the wetland and subsequent flow through our neighborhoods, and in some cases our home basements. One of our neighbors has provided a letter, and my wife will speak to that in a few minutes. Gina has a sump pump that runs that turns on every 15 minutes on a timer. She lives immediately adjacent to the wetland area now. She has an elevated outfall pipe she calls her waterfall in her backyard because she's constantly pumping water out of her basement. And this is before any changes have been made to the property. In 2015 budget forum packet provided by the town, Target is cited as an example of a source of revenue generation. This is a quote, in approximately $1 million of new revenue generated by Target, over $875,000 goes back to either the city or Schenectady County, $87,500 to Metroplex, with the town receiving approximately $8,623 for its economic involvement in this. $8,600 out of $1 million of revenue doesn't really seem to me to make it reasonable to be putting another business in, especially if we're endangering a wetland at the same time. Not all the homeowners who border on this area and find it difficult to enter safely and leave 50 are here in attendance. But basically what we have are individuals who are worried about their kids, and we have about 40 children 15 years of age and under in our 46 occupied households. So we've got over 100 people that we're talking about that are going to be using that intersection. Homeowners bought property in the neighborhood because it was a quiet, convenient, peaceful area to raise their families, or in our case, to retire. The quality of life in our neighborhood would drastically suffer if additional development is encouraged on this woodland property. Many of us feel that you as a board have an ethical responsibility to respect the rights of our neighborhood and our over 100 residents, and help to maintain the quality of life that we have come to enjoy. We are not against progress, but development of those two lots would definitely affect traffic and the atmosphere of our development and the value of our properties. Please remember, businesses and professional offices are open all the time. Pave that area, put in a building, they're going to be there for part of the day. But we in the neighborhood are going to be there all the time. And we're going to have to put up with whatever happens in that area all the time, whether businesses businesses going on or not. We ask you to reject the request for a zoning change. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Ma'am.
Hi, I'm Patty Bertino. I live at 14 Oak Hill Drive. And first I want to thank the board and supervisor for setting up our neighborhood meeting last week. We had 38 of our, I think it's about a 50 housing loop, but we had 38 people in attendance last week to express their concern. I guess I want to start out saying that we're not, as a neighborhood, we're not against development. Because when the car wash was put in directly across from our street, we absorbed that. We have Social Plaza directly to our right. And then this year we also now have Target to our left. So we're being squeezed. So we've had a lot of development in this area, and we're concerned now that it would stop and not go further with this other proposed building right at the corner of our lot. I would like to talk about primarily two concerns with the rezoning. I guess the first one mainly is the quality of life. The noise, the sound, and the light pollution that would be changed as a result of this building coming in. But I'd also like to talk about the effect that it has on seniors. Many of our seniors, and there are quite a few who live on Oak Hill Drive in that Ridgewood area, but it's not just our loop right there. It also affects, this traffic also affects the people on Lincoln Drive, Harding Boulevard, and those other neighboring streets. As some of you might know, many of you may not, as you get older, your reflexes are slower. And many of our seniors are afraid to come out during rush hour times or on a weekend. They don't have the courage to dart out in front of that traffic and thread the needle, more or less. And this is a big problem. Concern was expressed last week at our neighborhood meeting about the loss of property values. One of our neighbors was trying to sell his home and had two prospective buyers cancel after they came back to revisit the house, realizing that if you live on the street, it's very difficult to get off. I myself would not consider buying a house that bordered on the back of a big parking lot or business. So our resale value, we feel, is going to go down as a result of this. It seems like as I've been coming to board meetings, every board meeting is filled with yet another proposal for a zoning change or a variance. Right now, you mentioned that we are in the middle of heavy business zoning and light business. I'm concerned that if this zoning change comes through, then in 4 years' time, somebody's going to come up with another building proposal and say, well, now we even want more. So it doesn't seem to stop, it seems to spiral. I would also like to read a letter from Gina Laporte, who I think is going to be most affected by this building. Her property is going to border directly on the edge of this property. Gina writes, and she works at night, that's why she couldn't make it tonight. She says, I'm a resident of 3 Bridgewood Lane. I've lived here for 31 years. She said, I'd like to register my opposition regarding the zoning changes that would allow commercial construction on the land directly behind my house. The noise and lights already coming from Route 50 are very distracting. Her 3 main concerns are in regard to the growing traffic and potential increase in crime. She's concerned that this area will be turning into a commercial area as opposed to our neighborhood. She's also concerned about the loss of wildlife habitat. In that small wetlands in that area, there's a number of deer, ducks, and songbirds. She had mentioned that she, like many of our neighbors, has been hit trying to make that left-hand turn into Oak Hill Drive. I think my husband Bud has records of the number of people who live in our neighborhood who have either been hit or have had a near miss. So far, no one has had a serious accident with the loss of life. However, last week, you can notice on Route 50, there's tire tracks. We were out there actually walking that afternoon. You heard this squeal of screech of tires, kind of cringe waiting for an impact. You could see that it was a tractor trailer, Target tractor trailer, that had just abruptly stopped as someone was trying to make that turn. And those tire marks are still out there. You can see them right now. Gina writes she would please consider that these issues and concerns before we take away from neighborhoods for those seeking more money and the town seeking more taxes at the cost of peace and quiet and safety for those in residence. I'd like to close by asking you to please consider rejecting this zoning change to help protect our neighborhood from any further development and to help protect our residents and our senior citizens from the problems that we see would occur due to this increased construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Sir. Yes.
Hello, board, neighbors. My name is Charles Fitzgerald. I live on 8 Oak Hill Drive. Some of the bullet points I have here I'd like to have to discuss would also be some consideration points for the board as well. Some of it also resonates with what Patty had previously mentioned. Oak Hill Drive is a neighborhood that I sought out about 7 or 8 years ago to raise a young family. My wife and myself were just married at that time, and we chose that neighborhood because it was a cul-de-sac, it was a small area, and we'd been married for a couple of years, and we were planning on raising a small family together in this area. Over time, Route 50's become more and more congested, partially being with the Target and some of the other things that Bud and Patty had mentioned, and we understand that. Over time, they've discussed some alternatives to alleviate some of those traffic congestions, none of which have come into fruition. We're one of the only streets that are on Route 50 that don't have an outlet. So we're a cul-de-sac, so to speak, not really, but in layman's terms, I suppose, where you can, it's only access out onto Route 50. You try to take a left-hand turn onto 50, especially during rush hour, and with the cars that are coming in crossing over the shoulder, it has caused some traffic situations and some accidents that I know Bud's got to some of the statistics to, which has increased over time. Some of my concerns also are in regards to our property values. I recently, because of some of these situations, seen some of the writing on the wall. Part of the situation where we did decide to sell our house last year in the late fall, well, we had an offer in the late fall, was because of some of these issues with the traffic. We're not in a situation where we had to move. It was more of a standard of living type of an issue. So we were able to sell. I had an issue in November where, due to recent regulation or whatnot, as it was explained to me, our septic had failed when we had our test done. I was under contract with another property, and it kind of fell through. In late November, you can't start to get permits to dig in the ground in late November. So it was a deal-ending situation. It cost about $20,000 to have an above-ground system put in, because that's the current regulation here in Glenville for our particular neck of the woods. With that said, and like Bud was saying, as a person who had my house on the market for 4 or 5 months, a lot of the feedback that we were given at that time was, geez, you have an adorable house, it's in a great area, but you can't get out of here. I mean, you just can't get out of here. The traffic is just getting to be unbearable. And that resonated with us all throughout the selling process. So with that said, the home values in that area are really being impacted in a negative way by what's going on 50. And I'm not a naysayer. I understand that progress has to go on. I understand we got to move forward. But we have to do so responsibly. Bud had some of the statistics, and I didn't really get a chance to pick his ear a little bit tonight, as far as what kind of monetary gain the town has, what kind of skin the town has into the game for this investment. Well, I can tell you that whatever it is, the impact on the folks of Oak Hill Drive and adjacent streets would far exceed the negative impact as far as the standard of living is concerned in that area. A retail establishment in that area would mean that they would be open any given amount of time. I would like to see that lot vacant, but probably understand that that's not going to be that way for 100 years or even 5 years or even next year or in a couple months. But at least a professional establishment in that area would close its doors at 5 o'clock, would conform to traffic situations, and we wouldn't have to worry about the weekends and the nights and stuff like that. You know, ideally I'm with the rest of the neighborhood, and I don't think that really, you know, building there is going to have a benefit to the town. We have some vacant areas in the town that maybe the board and whoever else is involved can be an advocate for, and try to get some of those abandoned properties occupied in a professional way, whatever they can do, right? You know, but looking at the pennies you're picking up over there and laying down dimes to society, you know, to our neighborhood, it just doesn't make sense, and it just doesn't seem responsible. And in closing, I would just say that I'm opposed, along with a good portion of our neighborhood, and like Bud said, there's a lot of us that weren't able to make it out tonight, but considering the size of our neighborhood, we've had a lot of people that have been invested. Bud spent many hours and a lot of time in this, on behalf of a lot of folks that, like myself, do have a family and a career and other things that we can't come out here and represent ourselves. So I do appreciate what Bud does, and I appreciate you hearing me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Anyone once, sir?
Good evening, thank you. My name is Stuart Fass. I own 2 properties. I own both 13 and number 9 on Ridgewood Lane. My wife and I live in number 13. We relocated, way back 11 months ago. And bought the house, and our son and daughter-in-law and 2 grandchildren live next door. So we have a lot of vested interest in our neighborhood now. I've relocated from Altamont, where I own a small business as well, and went through DOT's redoing of the Main Street, Route 146, which is, a very similar situation, the state road that is the main thoroughfare through the village of Altamont. And I will tell you that my concern here, having dealt with DOT, because both my house in Altamont and my business were on 146, dealing with DOT is a chore in itself. And they were not very responsive to Altamont's needs. I will tell you that at one point, their plan for 146 through Altamont called for no parking anywhere along our main street. That's Main Street and Maple Avenue. Those are residential streets. There's no businesses on those streets other than a very few, mine being one of a few, a residential professional. here I think we might be putting the cart before the horse, because I've heard rumblings of maybe a turn lane put in eventually, and yet when I saw the site plan, a turn lane would take frontage from that property, which would take parking spots away, which would put them out of code. There's no provisions being made for sidewalks, there's no provisions being made for some of the things that we're going to be suggesting to DOT for down the line to make this a safer intersection. And I think the zoning change at this point in time kind of jumps ahead when I know full well DOT's cooperation down the line is never a guarantee. And I think you know that. Any of you who've dealt with DOT know that well. For that reason, I'm a little concerned. I'm a small businessman. I understand the property owner owns this business, and I know that people say, well, there's other places developable, but he doesn't own them. This is the property he owns, and I understand his desire to develop it as a business person. But at the same time, I think the town has to be realistic in looking at this corridor. It is the main thoroughfare in town, and has to address it for the future and make sure that DOT, especially the state, which has ultimate control of the roadway, is on board with some of the changes that are going to happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter?
My name is Joan Tulip. I live at 162 Saratoga Road, right next to the car wash. And I'm filled with Oak Hill Drive. I agree with them. The water situation underneath the ground, that is a big thing there, you know. And years ago, across the street on my side, he used to grow grapes there. There was never a house there. You know, they grew grapes. That's all I wanted to say. Just, you know, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Only once? We don't usually have second comers.
Can they speak for somebody else in our neighborhood?
Are they here to speak for themselves tonight? Unfortunately, we don't have second.
I did Moira's chair. Hello, I'm Mark Olson. I live on 14 Ridgewood Lane. Thank you for the opportunity to talk here. One of the concerns that didn't make Bud's initial list was that there is, or at least used to be, a state designated bike route from Freeman's Bridge clear to the intersection of 50 and Glenridge. And there are spots where you could hardly tell that at the moment. And there's concern with that shoulder that people pass on when people want to turn left into the car wash. People will zip around their right side. And meanwhile, us residents are there waiting to turn right or left, and we just can't do it, we're blocked. And sometimes they almost hit people waiting to turn onto 50 as they zip around. And then on top of it, it is a main bike thoroughfare through Glenville. So it would be better if something was done about the traffic situation, and increasing business in that corridor is only going to aggravate that situation, as well as the groundwater situation. We've had issues with flooding in our basement, and I think it was like about 2 years ago we put in a $3,000 system with triple backup to try to handle that, which has so far been okay for us. But anyway, I think those are considerations, that both those things that strongly affect our neighborhood are only going to be aggregated by further business.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard on this matter? Going once, going twice. The hearing is now closed. Move on to item number 7, which is privilege of the floor. We have some people signed up. We'll go with them first, and then if you wish to be heard at privilege of the floor, you could have a second shot at it then. That would be fine. So the first person is Anthony Bertino. I believe you spoke, or would you like to speak again? You sent us the privilege of the floor?
Okay.
It's up to you. You don't have to if you're not discouraging you. That wasn't, you know.
Anyway, there was a traffic after our last meeting. I was walking through the woods, as I told you before, and this Target truck went like that. It stopped so abruptly. My wife and I teach forensic science, and so I did a rough measurement on the track, and he was only going maybe 33 miles an hour. But at 33 miles an hour, that's an awful lot of momentum going down the road. And so it poses a real problem. The other thing is that on the Friday, the day after that happened, there was an accident at that intersection, and one of my neighbors took some pictures that I'll be glad to send you. I sent a note to the chief of police and asked him if he could make a list of all of the accidents that have occurred in the last few years, just to have a collection of information. And based upon the supervisors and Mr. Martin's recommendation, we've drafted a petition to be sent to a number of people in the Department of Transportation in the hopes that they will do something to synchronize lights or enforce signage along the road, or whatever they can do to just make the area safer for everybody. And we're convinced as a group that making the area safer for everybody that goes through that intersection is good for business, and it's good for everybody that lives in the area. I have a copy of the cover of the petition if you would like to see it. And as you leave tonight, I'll be out in the hall, and if you haven't signed it, please feel free to come by and sign it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now this call, I'm sorry, we do have a list. Charles Fitzgerald is the other person. Yes, have you already spoken to speak again? Okay. The next person I signed up is Joey Butler.
Hello, my name is Joe Bucket. I own 799 Saginaw Road, Liberty 07 Bull Road. Kind of don't know where to start, and don't want to get too far into things here, but let me start by saying I own 16.96 acres, which runs up behind the houses on Church Road. And many of my neighbors have complained about gunfire, cutting their tree down, many other things. I own the property where the tree was cut down and where Mr. Reynolds decided to park his things. So you can hear the other side of it. I own the parcel of property. As far as target practicing goes, I own 17 acres. It's 1,500 feet long in the back line. Perfectly legal, not breaking any laws. I'm not going to dwell on that too much. Let me tell you the real reason I'm here. I think it's kind of disgusting in the town of Glenville that a neighbor of mine can stand up here and make false complaints, turn them into the board, stand up here, he's scared for his life. His name is Thomas Poitras. He lives at 172 Church Road, and he is a VP of some sort for Trustco Bank. So obviously, I get my hands dirty for the way he handles money. I'll pass these along, I'll collect them at the end, but I know how to FOIL request work. But this was May 4th of last year. That's a 4-inch corrugated plastic pipe, which is noted on my survey map, which cost me 14 grand to have it surveyed, that runs from his distribution box 33 feet across my property and discharges to a protected trout stream, so they call it. Since then, I've been in contact with DEC, Health Department, Town of Glenville, actually the day of. Took him 4 months to get ticketed from DEC, where he immediately told DEC officer that I put culvert pipes in across the creek for a driveway, which had been washed out, never denied it. Showed up for my ticket, didn't beat around the bush, didn't deny it. He also received a trespass ticket for disturbing my property, which was later ACO'd through the Glenville court because, I don't really want to criticize, but your police department wrote me a trespass ticket for standing on my property, who he called in and said I was painting a tree that was his. He had no way of proving that it was or wasn't his property. I got a trespass ticket from Glenville Police. The week later, he was on my property dumping his ashes, or his apples. I called Glenville. Before I even knew I got a summons for trespass. And the officer who responded refused to write a trespass ticket. I went home that night and had one in the mail for being on my property. Okay? There's been multiple trespass charges up there. They've all been found guilty that have been charged by me in court. Done deal. Order of protection's issued. This is later in the year, July. That's discharging on my property. Okay? Now it's been tested. It's sewage. Now he has rallied, knocked on doors, got neighbors to come up here and talk. He's got Tom Fonda on board. We'll touch on that in a little while. In the process, a permit that was written by our building department, which we're in court for, I won't dwell on it, resurfaced. So we're in the court process of trying to get to the bottom of it. It's been a year plus. I believe that there's internal things going on here because he's pushing, okay? Nothing personal, but Mike Cuevas is related to Tom Fonda. I would ask the board right now to not allow him to handle anything involving my property or with my name on it, because he has conflict of interest, I believe. I have proof that I've done FOIL requests through the town, multiples of them, to find information. I have proof that some information has been withheld. I don't know whose hands they go through before I get them, but there is information that has been withheld, and I have proof. I have court orders from the Supreme Court for people to stay off my property, and Glenville Police wants to do nothing. By orders of the chief to handle everything delicately, I don't know. I've been in contact with multiple people over this. My neighbor is dumping sewage on my property every day for the last year and a half plus. Okay? That's why all the neighbors are coming here to defend him, so you all know. Pretend this is your backyard. Somebody arrogantly digs across your property and then takes the focus off the ball from you people and wants to tell everybody it's groundwater. That's not groundwater, okay? That's why. And I spoke with Mr. Ketzley November of last year. I asked to make it a item on the whatever your work session is. You can have it all. I'm not here making any lies up. It's the facts. That offer is kind of expired now because, like I said, I have folders and folders of paperwork, test results. I think it's unfair that I have to spend money to defend what's right. Obviously, there are more issues going on with the town. I spoke to Mr. Cutsey about that. I believe that you should look into your building inspector and his personal interests and decisions that he makes, and you should go out and knock on local business doors of the experiences with our building inspector. Okay? I take this personal. I'm the property owner. My father's business is at that location. And he's basically single-handedly trying to put my father's business out of business. Okay? He couldn't run his own. He's not going to run my family's business. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard or come to the floor?
I'm sorry, I was late.
It's okay. You can still be heard. We're on privilege of the floor. Generally, it's a 5-minute rule on privilege of the floor, so we'll just...
We're gonna have a light like Schenectady.
No, Schenectady has a light, you're right.
My buddy Vince Ricky will take care of that.
I try to politely ask the summary.
My name's Frank Farina. I live on 17 Oak Hill Drive. I don't know what happened here before I got here. I have no idea at all. I'm here for one reason. Oak Hill and Route 50. Safety, period. That's what I'm here for. What I want to know is why isn't the law for riding on the shoulder of a road. It's a state law. Why isn't that enforced? I don't know if at this type of meeting do you answer or?
It's not a question, no, yeah, we just listen.
Okay. Why isn't that enforced? When I worked at GE, I rode my bike every single day from Oak Hill to GE and back. And I had to stop after a while, it got so bad. Getting in and out of my street is terrible, and I mean terrible. Now, I don't know if anybody brought this up, but on my street also, besides the neighbors who live there, there's a house that takes care of, I don't know if it's children's or what is it, but
Handicapped young adults.
handicap. Now, every shift, they have 3 cars in the driveway who take care of it. I guess they have to have 1 person for every person. There's 3 cars every shift, and there's 3 shifts. That's 9. 9 a day. 9 times 7. That's how many cars, plus a bus that has to come and take the people there for the doctor appointments whatsoever. So that's added on to the traffic of the people in our street. But I've been there for 24 years, and I can tell you accidents that I've seen that gone back where people have permanent back problems from it and other things. But that's my main concern. What can we do? I'm asking you. I elected you to help us. What can you do to help us? That's what I want to know. That's why I'm here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard, privilege of the floor? Going once, going twice. Which floor is now closed? The attorney, before, I'm going to go to the supervisor's comments to the board, but before so, the town attorney wishes to make a clarification.
A comment was made by a speaker relating, alleging that I'm related to someone who filed a complaint against him. And the fact of the matter is that the person he's referring to is not a blood relative of mine at all. It happens to be a cousin of my wife's. So by any ethical standard, I had no obligation to even divulge that relationship. But when the speaker was first charged, I volunteered that information to his attorney and asked if his attorney had any issue with it. The fact that the complainant was a cousin to my wife. And so it's rather incredible that he brings this up as if it was some kind of secret. I made that information known to the building inspector and to the town board at the time that these charges were initiated. So there was no, misrepresentation on my part. In fact, I went above and beyond my legal and ethical responsibilities to make that disclosure known to Mr. Budka and his attorney.
Thank you. We're now in the supervisor's comments to the board. I want to focus my comments tonight very specifically on the tentative town budget that was submitted to the town clerk yesterday, and I think all of you in your mailboxes as of yesterday as well. Obviously, you've all been part of this process and know a lot of already what's in the budget, but I think just for the public's point of view, it would be nice if we take a minute to go through it. Before we start that, I too want to make just some clarifications on where we are with the proposed zone change at Route 50 in Oak Hill and our progress or attempt of progress at working with DOT on some of those issues. Tonight, we had a public hearing on the zone change, specific zone change, not site plan review, and a lot of the issues brought up in the neighborhood meeting and also in tonight are more specific to site plan review, which will, if it does get to that point, be part of the planning and zoning process. We do have a problem with traffic on Route 50. Nobody is going to dispute that, except for maybe DOT. We're trying to work with them. I've played phone tag. We've exchanged emails on some of these issues. There were some things brought up at the neighborhood meeting that we need to clarify. One of the things was there was a specific charge that the Socia family were able to put up signs and reflectors on Route 50 at will to try to avoid this driving on the shoulder issue. That is not the case. I called both the Socias and DOT. That is not the case. That was DOT put the no pass on shoulder sign. They believe that that sign encompasses the Oak Hill because it's right there. Very, very, very unlikely that they would put another sign within 500 feet of each other on the no drive. The reflectors were put on at the Social family's request because people weren't driving on the shoulder, they were driving on their lawn. And DOT, to keep people off the lawn, put these delineators up. We do the same thing on town roads. If someone calls and says they're driving on my lawn, Tommy will go out and put up either the wood post or delineator. We have them all over on town roads. So we do the same as the state does. We don't have the authorization to do it on the state road. Only the state DOT can, but it was meant to keep people off of private property lawn, not off the shoulder. So I just wanted to clarify some of that. The interesting thing is that as we've talked, and I think Kevin can talk to this a little bit more in the past with DOT about some of the issues on Route 50, life is a matter of perspective very often. We have a perspective on things and they have a perspective on things. They feel that the critical mass isn't there yet. We may disagree with that, but the point of the matter is that their thresholds aren't met yet to deal with lights, to deal with some of these issues. Doesn't mean we can't continue to push it. Doesn't mean we don't continue to try to. And I know sometimes when things go quiet, people don't know that we're burning up the phone lines and we're going down and visiting with these folks, and trying to push these issues. But their response remains that the thresholds aren't met yet. And in some ways, at some point we'll get there. And it may require development to get there, but at some point we're going to get there where something has to be addressed. We're not there yet as far as they're concerned. Not our decision, not the residents' decision, but it was asked a pointed question to me, what am I doing to represent you? And the fact of the matter is quite a lot. The results aren't always what we want, but the process is being followed. We continue. Kevin is my witness. We talk about it during the day. We reach out to DOT. We talk to them about it. But it doesn't always, just because we're not getting where we want to be, doesn't mean the effort's not being made and that we're not trying. Someone else tonight referenced their experience with DOT in Altamont, and it's true. It's a difficult process, but I continue to try. I know the board members continue to try. I know each of you are very concerned about these issues, but we continue to work on it. But we just have to be aware that DOT has a different standard and they have a different perspective on this situation. Jeff.
Mr. Supervisor, I sit on the Town of Glenville Traffic Safety Board, and I have done that for a number of years. Oak Hill Drive has certainly been on our radar, and certainly have had residents come and speak at our meeting and so forth. And there is no doubt in our mind that there's an issue there at Oak Hill Drive, as well as Wilson and Lincoln, as they're both dead-end streets just up the road too. We asked DOT to put a traffic light at that location, and as Mr. Supervisor has said, there isn't the numbers to justify for them to do that. So the next question was, can we put a third lane in there to make kind of so that you don't have to go on somebody's lawn to go around somebody who's going to make a turn? And again, the numbers weren't there. So our next request was, if you're southbound and somebody's making a left into the car wash, that people go around them. And partly they go off the road in order to do that. Can we do something on that property in order to make it so that they physically can't do that? Whether it be a sign, a fence, or something like that. And DOT has said that we can't do that. Part of that is the responsibility of the landowner, but But part of it is any kind of object that we put in their way, if somebody hits it, we could be liable for that. And I know it's not right, but that's the way it is in today's society, unfortunately. And I know there's also an issue with people going around, cars making a left turn that are northbound. There is no doubt in our mind that those three areas, especially Oak Hill Drive, are an issue. Unfortunately, we're not getting the help that we really need for DOT in order to go forward with any kind of problem solving at this moment. And it may be just that we need more numbers or more development in order for them to act upon it. So I did want to mention that we have looked at it quite often.
Thank you very much, Councilman. So with that issue, at least behind us for tonight, we'll address this. Obviously, first time we can decide on the zone change will be October 15th as the earliest possible date. So I don't know if it's going to be on the agenda as we speak tonight or not, but everyone will get the agenda, obviously, in enough time to know if it is. Regarding the budget, which has kind of been dominant lately, I want to first of all thank our comptroller, Jason Cupworth, for his phenomenal work on this. This is my 5 years, has been the smoothest and easiest budget. I'm not saying easiest from the point of view of getting the numbers where they need to be, but as far as process and working with our comptroller, Jason did a phenomenal job. Mike Cuevas and Jamie McFarland, obviously, as part of our top management team, were all very helpful, and I think we got to where we needed to be, despite some of the tough decisions we had to make. But I appreciate all three of their input and their work on this, and also, of course, our department heads who provided all of us with their requests, and through the process worked very well with us and understood some of the constraints that we were under. Just to kind of summarize real quick the tentative budget, and of course we'll have an opportunity to pass the preliminary budget, and then obviously the full budget will be later in November after the public hearing. But this spending plan that I presented before the board is a conservative plan, which once again stays below the state property tax cap limit. We have, as a town, stayed below that tax limit, tax cap, every year since it's been enacted. And we're one of the few towns that can say that in this county, and did it without putting any new gimmicks into the budget. There are no fees in this budget. For example, if a town wanted to enact a $50 leaf pickup fee, that represents close to a 12% tax levy. Just think about that for a minute. It evades the tax cap because it's not a tax, but it's a fee. It's a new fee. And some budgets, when you look at other municipalities, you have to look at and see if those new fees are in there to see really what that means to your bottom line, which would be almost a 12%. We also have not deferred, which other municipalities have decided to do, our retirement obligation to the state of New York. We do have the option of deferring some or all of that. And all that does is compound the burden into future years. And it does so at a pretty significant interest rate nowadays, I believe 3% or so. I don't have the exact rate, but in order to try to stay on the cap, some municipalities have deferred their payment and then I think compound or set up future problems in the future. This budget does not do that. This town has not done that. And it's my recommendation that we do not do that. The levy increase for this budget is a 2.87. That is below the cap. We do have a bonus this year in 2015. The state of New York has decided that if a municipality stays under the cap, our residents will get the rebate back. So they will get whatever levy increase occurs under that cap back in a check next November. So our residents will be receiving the levy increase back if we stay under that 2.87. That 2.87, what it means in real dollars, because everyone's obviously concerned about the dollars more than the percentage, is a homeowner inside the town, or I should say outside the village, so town-wide outside village, a typical town home, a January tax bill for for all the town funds, including highway, water, sewer, and special districts, will see an increase of $17.85 on the average home of $171,000 of assessment in the town. So that levy increase means almost, not quite an $18 increase per year.
And that's not per thousand, for the
That's the whole
entire
thing.
year.
That's the whole thing. And because we stay under the tax cap, they'll get their $17.85 back in a check. The effective increase is a zero for 2015. The village resident will see an increase of $11.87 for their average home, which I believe is valued at $116,000 or $117,000. They too will get a town rebate. They will not get a village rebate because the village broke the tax cap, so they won't be getting their levy increase back from the village for 2015. I'm not sure the villages are in the 2015 number. Do they count this year, villages? I don't know. Count for next year, okay. The budget remains true to the principles that this town board has espoused over the past 5 years. Fiscal restraint, avoidance of unnecessary borrowing. We've lowered our debt $4 million since 2010. We lowered our dependency on the fund balance again, and we are living within our means. In fact, we reduced our fund balance this year from $610,000 in 2014 to $580,000 in 2015. That continues to trend over the last 5 years of reducing that fund balance allocation at the high of $1.4 million in 2010. What that means, and I know you all understand it, but for the public's point of view, using your fund balance to pay for your operating expenses every year is like paying your mortgage out of your savings account because you're not making enough money to pay your mortgage. Eventually that's going to run out. This town, we inherited before we were elected a budget in 2010 that used $1.4 million of our savings account to pay for operational expenses. Each year we diligently reduced that, and again we reduced it to $580 this year, which is about a 60% reduction over the 5 years. That's significant. That's taking money off the table that was there from the savings account that we had to either replace with a levy, unfortunately. There are some years where we probably could have had a 0%, but we had to do a small levy, or cuts elsewhere in the budget. This budget is also under the tax cap, absorbing an anticipated $125,000 increase in our health care expense and an expected $250,000 in accrued time payouts for our retirees. We had 7 retirees this year. We expect 7 more. We had a budget about $220,000, $250,000 in 2014 to pay for the cash outs for the retirees. We're going to do the same thing again. Over 2 years, that's $500,000 out the door. We've absorbed that into this budget and still stayed under the tax cap. We did that, obviously, with some of the difficult cuts we made over this year and some of the difficult decisions we made that some people may not have seen or understood why we were making them at the time, but I think now, after looking at this budget, understand the incredible challenge we had to do to get under the tax cap. We are also, unfortunately, dealing with a significant drop in our revenues. Our mortgage tax line is down this year, $150,000. We expected at the end about $150,000 below revenue. We're not seeing that the housing market has slowed down in Glenville at all. In fact, filed deeds are up this year, 6% over last year. We are seeing the refis are done. They're completely done, and that's impacted our revenue. So we've reduced the revenue line in the 2015 budget from $675,000 in 2014 to $525,000 in 2015. We had to absorb that reduction. So that budget does that as well. The other challenge we're dealing with is the county pass-through of the election expense. This is something that I've talked about, I know all of you've talked about quite a lot over the years. We're going to see another $25,000 in increase from the county on their election costs. That brings their bill to the town. Now remember, the county runs the elections. They do not pay for it out of the county budget. They pass the bill on to the towns to pay it, and it goes against our tax cap, not their tax cap. And our bill now, with this $25,000 increase, which by the way is a 7% increase in a 2% tax cap world, will bring our bill to about almost $390,000 to run elections every year, just in the town of Glenville. When we had it, before everyone had the great idea of consolidating this into a county function, when we had it, we spent about $48,000 to run elections in the town of Glenville. The county took it over and went up tenfold in 5 years. That's a significant challenge, so we're going to continue to absorb those increases as well. And then lastly, just a few other quick things on the budget, and then we can open up a few questions if anyone has any other comments. We continue our practice of paying cash instead of borrowing for our daily operational vehicles such as police cars, DPW, pickup trucks, and vans. I, along with Jason, Mike, and Jamie's advice, had cut the one police car out, so there's one police car in, there was 2 requested. And I also had cut the request for an extra pickup truck for the engineer tech out of this budget as well. We did add $1,000 into the Empire State Aeroscience Museum to host a Glenville Day for all town residents in 2015. And we are investing in our technology infrastructure, which is extremely important to improve efficiency with the long overdue replacement of our servers for our town computer network, and that's costing a lot of money as well. Overall, our appropriations are down by $73,000, so the levy is up, but it's important to know our spending is down by $73,000. The levy increase mostly has to do with revenue loss or revenue decrease, and the fact that our sales tax is stagnant and our mortgage tax is dropping. That's the quick overview of the budget. I hit on the highlights. I know it's a large document, $17 million spending plan. I know we've all been involved in it as we've gone through this past 6 weeks or so. Any questions or comments at this time? I know we're going to get ready for passing the preliminary on the next board meeting. So that'll be October 15th. The preliminary will be put up for a vote. And so any amendments would have to be made prior to that, and then we'll go to a public hearing in early November, and then we'll go to the final in late November. If the final fails to pass, the preliminary becomes the final. That's the importance of the preliminary.
Mr. Supervisor, I just want to kind of ask you in a roundabout way. So we had made the move in this year's budget to have our supervisor position be full-time, and there's quite a lot of controversy about it at the beginning of the year. Can you just, I see how it's benefited the town. Could you just maybe touch on a couple things so that the residents that may have had questions about it or concerns about it, that may be watching this from home at some point or what have you, like I said, I know the benefits of it, but how do you feel about it? How do you feel that that's worked out for the year?
Well, that's a loaded question. My hair is a lot grayer. I'm 45 today, so I feel a lot older than that. It's been, I think, a good transition for the town. I know there's been some question by some residents and things like that as to how was the model set up. Let me address first of all the part-time model, because that's one of the key drivers. I know that people said, well, if Jamie retired, if your director of operations retired, then why is he going back part-time? And really the answer to that is that as we went through it, when we did it, we talked about the different responsibilities. That I, being a part-timer, really kind of worked full-time hours already. Jamie had a plate load of duties he had to do as a full-time operations director, being parks and seniors, being most of it. And so when he retired, instead of us hiring a new full-timer or even a part-timer that we might have to pay benefits to, we used the model of bringing back a part-timer who, once they retire, we don't have to pay health insurance anymore, we don't have to pay into the retirement system. That's a significant savings. That's a 50% cost driver on those people. So we've used this model over and over again, not just with making Jamie the deputy supervisor and having operational responsibilities in the town for seniors and parks and some other things, but we've done that in the assessor's office, we've done that in the police department, we've done that with our dispatcher, we brought one back. We've done it across the board because it saves the town so much money. It's very efficient to have a retiree come back part-time and not have those benefit costs anymore. So that has been very, very, very beneficial. And I will say for Jamie and the work that he did this year, I believe he volunteered some of his time. He worked more than was budgeted, and I think he gave more than what he's being paid for. As far as me, it's been, you might want to ask some of the people around here. Some people like having me here, and some people don't like having me here, and I think there's been some benefits to it. And we saved money in the transition. We saved the $20,000 in the position we cut out. I know people can, again, I said, life's a matter of perspective. Everyone has a different perspective. Some people can say, you know what, oh, he gave himself a $60,000 raise or whatever. I give myself to this town 24/7. You can ask the residents that I respond to on Sundays and Saturdays and in the evenings. And it's not a full-time job. It's not a part-time job. It's not even a job. It's a lifestyle, and I enjoy it. And I think it worked out well. So I probably gave you more than you wanted, but I think it's been a good move for the town.
No, I just thought that was a fair question in retrospect of what it was for you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, I just want to extend my appreciation to you and to Jason particularly on this budget. It was particularly challenging. I know the environment that we're in, especially this year. I know we're at the preliminary phase still, but it looks very good to me so far. And I think it's tougher each and every year to stay under that tax cap. And a lot of people worked hard on this, the staff, the department heads. And I just want to extend my appreciation for all the hard work.
Thank you. Anyone else? Questions, comments? Thank you. Okay, so we return to the agenda, and we will take up item number 8, the resolution issuing a negative declaration for local law proposed number 5.
Number 9.
Number 9, did I say 8?
Same thing.
That's before I put my glasses on. All right, so we will take up anyone move that?
I'll move it.
Any second?
Second?
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, this as well as the next 5 resolutions, so I don't have to say this each and every time, are concerned with the change that we are proposing to make with the Conservation Commission and repurposing them, so to speak. There's been, this has a lot of effect throughout many parts of the code. I shouldn't say a lot, but it does extend into many parts of the code. This, as well as the subsequent resolutions, are dealing with that repurposing and redirection of that commission. And it's just all these cleanup items have to be done.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pittlebaum?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 10, adopting local law 5, repealing chapter 132. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Do I have a second?
A second?
Moved in second. Any discussion? Just to be clear, this is removing GEC's role
Yeah, from the environmental review.
from the environmental review.
Yeah, chapter 132 of the code.
So seeker will be done at the planning and zoning.
Or your board or the zoning board.
Yeah, if the respective board has ever.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pittlebaum?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, resolution 11, issuing a negative declaration for local law 6.
I'll move it.
I was gonna say which amends chapter 242.
Yes.
We got one move and we have a second.
Second?
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yeah, this is just the environmental assessment of that, and it concerns chapter 242, the subdivision of land.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pittlebaum?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, resolution 12, adopting local law 6, which makes amendments to chapter 242. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Jim, just summarize what this.
Yeah, this is the actual change. We just did the environmental assessment on it. This is the actual change to chapter 242 and the subdivision of land regarding how seeker is dealt with in terms of subdivision review.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 13, issuing a negative declaration regarding proposed local law 7, which amends chapter 270. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, this is a negative declaration on changing this part of the law, which focuses on the environmental assessment of variances as they're forthcoming.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 14, a local law, adopting the local law 7 that makes amendments to chapter 270. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, this is the actual change to the Town Code, Chapter 270 zoning, concerning GECC's role in the environmental assessment of variances.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 15, scheduling a public hearing for October 15th to consider certain water district extensions. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this is to schedule a public hearing for the assessment of water district number 11 and extension number 1342 of said water district for the 15th day of October 2014 at 7 p.m. here at Town Hall, Glenville Municipal Center.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 16, scheduling a public hearing for Wednesday, October 15th to consider assessment roll for sewer district. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this may have to actually be amended because it refers to request sewer extension in this motion. Does that need to be amended? Mr.
No,
Davis?
it's only the title.
Okay, so this is to schedule a public hearing for sewer district number 9 in the town of Glenville, according to the 15th of October 2014 at 7 p.m. here at Town Hall, Glenville Municipal Center, with regard to the assessment role for that district.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 17, to schedule a public hearing for the same night to consider assessment roll for yet another sewer district. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It's moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this is scheduled a public hearing in connection with the Acorn Drive Sewer District and Woodland Sewer District for October 15th, 2014 at 7 p.m. here at Glenville Municipal Center.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 18, scheduling yet another public hearing for yet another assessment roll. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this is to schedule a public hearing for the Outlaw Sewer District number 1 and extension number 1 within the town of Glenville for the 15th of October 2014 at 7 p.m. here at Glenville Municipal Center.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Pittavani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Ketzler?
Yes, resolution passes. Now my favorite resolution all year. I wait for this all year. Resolution scheduling the Halloween celebration. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, it's the intent of this resolution to keep Halloween a safe day for the children trick-or-treating in Glenville. We are adopting the hours of 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Friday, October 31st, to be the trick-or-treating hours. And this resolution is to authorize the chief to print up safe Friday Halloween notices to be distributed to neighborhood watch groups, schools, churches, newspapers, and any other locations deemed appropriate.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I like Halloween candy.
Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Catalano?
Yes.
Councilman Ramottar?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Now we have our add-ons. We have 5 add-ons, and we'll go through them fairly quickly. Add-on number 1 is a resolution scheduling yet another public hearing for yet another sewer extension. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
I almost launched into my discussion prior to my motion. This is to schedule a public hearing with regard to proposed extension of sewer district number 9 for 3 lots on Maple Avenue. Public hearing is rescheduled for October 15th, 2014 at 7 p.m. here at Town Hall, Glenville Municipal Center.
Any questions or comments? We're going to have a very busy October 15th public hearing.
You're going to be slamming that hammer.
Please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Catalano?
Yes.
Councilman Ramottar?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Next, resolution 2, accepting the lowest responsible bid received by October 10th for town natural gas. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Just for a point of clarification, Jason and I met with our energy consultant, and they're suggesting that we take a look to solicit competitive bids for the town's natural gas needs for various terms, not to exceed 2 years. The idea here is to lock into a lower price or a more less risky price as we go into the winter months. The town is currently under contract for $4.95 per decatherm, and obviously with the volatility of the natural gas market, our energy consultant will be looking at possible lower bids, and we'll be receiving our lowest bid by October 10th. Of course, the board doesn't meet again until the 15th, so we need to act fairly quickly if the bid comes in good, and this would give the supervisor the authority to accept the lowest responsible bid for terms not to exceed 2 years, as long as bid procedures and as long as the bid produces cost savings to the town. Do I have a motion?
I think we moved it already. I did.
Oh, that's my discussion.
That was
Any
it.
questions or that was such a long explanation. I
Long
forgot that.
discussion.
So do we expect a reduction?
We expect it, we hope.
Okay.
We hope.
I
A
got
pipeline
it.
would- a pipeline would help, but absent that, we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, and don't worry, I won't make any decisions without talking to our comptroller over there. We'll make sure the numbers work. Please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Catalano?
Yes.
Councilman Ramottar?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
And Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. We are taking resolution add-on 3 off, so we'll move to 4, which is accepting the lowest responsible bid for affordable restoration bid for the expense of Greens Corner School. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor. The town of Glenville owns and maintains an historic property known as the Green Corners One-Room Schoolhouse located at Green Corners in Potter's Road. And that property is in need of significant structural repair. So the Scotia Rotary has volunteered to actually take on reimbursing the town for fixing this property up. And this resolution is to accept the lowest of 3 bids for fixing our property up, which Scotia Rotary will then reimburse the town. The lowest bid so far is $21,852.
Excellent. Any questions or comments?
I think this is wonderful.
Yeah.
I'd just like to make a comment on Rotary's Facebook page that they had a number of workers up there this past weekend, and it shows some of the pictures of them working on the school, which is really nice.
Okay, now any questions or? I want to point out, first of all, we have residents here from Green Corner, and it's a great gem that we have in the town, and it's important for us to protect and I appreciate all the work of the community. But in their letter, first of all, Bruce McConnelly is the kind of the organizer from Scotia Rotary. He's doing a phenomenal job, and we appreciate his work on it. But joining Scotia Rotary, which we appreciate, is Glenville Rotary as well, and Bellamy Construction. They've also donated their time and efforts to support the project, so we do appreciate all of their work as well.
Could we send off an official letter of thanks? Would that be appropriate, you think?
Yeah. I think maybe when the
it's
project's
completed.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Let's wait till they reimburse us.
Maybe when the project's complete, we can have some sort of ribbon cutting ceremony and thank them that would be really great, because the committee that is in charge of that property, they do a fantastic job, and it's really great to see our community coming together for something that's a piece of art.
Yeah, I mean, that's
And I
what
think
it's
it
all about.
deserves- Yeah, I think it
This is
deserves
great.
some proper recognition on when it's done, and with memory.
And we were remiss to mention Jamie's role. Jamie Farland has worked very hard on this as well. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
An enthusiastic yes.
Councilman Petrolani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Capson?
Yes, resolution passes. Next resolution, add-on resolution number 5, authorizing the superintendent of highways to award a paving project. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any discussion?
Mr. Supervisor, this resolution is in connection with the proposal to pave Maritime Road in the town of Glenville. 3 bids were received from Del Sigma Blacktop Paving Incorporated, Commercial Paving Company LLC, and Empire Paving, with Del Sigma Blacktop Paving Incorporated submitting the lowest bid amount of $37,304.44. This is within our budgeted amount for the 2014 budget to award this bid. So this resolution will then authorize Superintendent of Highways to award the paving of Maritime Road to the lowest qualified bidder, Del Sigma Blacktop Paving, in a sum not to exceed $37,304.44. And as I said, it is within our budgeted amount to do so. And CHIPS money will also be coming into play there as well.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Petrolani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Last add-on 6, authorizing the supervisor to execute all necessary documents for the 2014-15 court funding under the New York State Justice Department. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Okay, moved in second. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, funding has been made available under a competitive grant process through the New York State Justice Department's Justice Court Assistance Program for funding of municipal court security projects. It's in the best interest of the town of Glenville to apply for the available funding, and the town of Glenville would approve an application for funding under this assistance program with a request amount not to exceed $30,000. I would just like to point out that this whole podium here was purchased under this grant, as was all the chairs that are in the courtroom now in a previous grant through the Justice Court Assistance Program.
Maybe we can get booster seats.
I was just gonna say, maybe we can get the floor
We
elevated.
just need a phone book.
The phone book, any other questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Supervisor, as liaison to the court, I would just like to say that Joelle and Gretchen work very hard every year to try to secure this funding. It is over and above what their job description requires, and I think that shows, as with all of our employees, the commitment to making things better for the town of Glenville, and finding ways to do more with less, and finding funding to improve our environment. So I'd just like to say thank you very much to the court clerks for their hard work.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please record the vote.
Councilman Martin?
Yes.
Councilman Petrolani?
Yes.
Councilman Ramichardi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski?
Yes.
Supervisor Pettsley?
Yes, resolution passes. Last item, new business, to start on my left with Councilman Ramichardi, on new business.
Nothing new.
Councilwoman Wozzachowski.
Nothing new, Mr. Supervisor.
Councilman Martin.
Not tonight.
Councilman Pittavani.
Unanimous.
Well, I just want to thank all of you for spending my birthday with me.
Yeah, happy birthday, by the way.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Any opposed?